The night was supposed to be perfect, a celebration of our 5th wedding anniversary. I had imagined a quiet evening with Tom, my husband, reminiscing about the years we had spent together. Instead of toasting to our journey, the entire foundation of my life came crashing down. Tom had planned a surprise for me, something special to mark the occasion. His message earlier in the day had been a thoughtful reminder of the man he used to be, the man who could make my heart skip a beat with a simple text. But rather than feeling joy, I felt dread. I was in Jake's apartment, his touch still lingering on my skin, a painful reminder of what I'd done. Jake was a stark reminder of the double life I had been leading. He was everything Tom no longer was. With him, I felt alive, seen, and desired. With him, I rediscovered a version of myself I thought I had lost forever. But this wasn't love. It was an escape, a reprieve from the cold, silent distance that had grown between Tom and me. When did it happen? When did we become strangers? Was it when Tom started coming home late, consumed by work? Or when our conversations turned into little more than brief exchanges about schedules and errands? Jake had entered my life when I needed someone the most. At first, it was just a harmless connection, an engaging conversation over a business lunch and a good laugh. But over time, things changed. He became my secret, my refuge. 16 months had passed since our affair began. Those months were filled with passion, guilt, and the constant fear of being discovered. Tom wasn't a bad man. He provided for us and made sure our lives were comfortable and stable. He worked tirelessly, always trying to give us the best. But while he gave so much, both materially and emotionally, he had retreated. We stopped seeing each other in the ways that mattered, and our love became a distant memory, a relic of the past. In that void, Jake had stepped in. Tonight, as I was getting ready for dinner, I felt weighed down by the choices I had to make. Tom's message was still on my phone, reminding me of the life we had built together, or at least the life he thought we had built. My smile in the mirror was carefully practiced, and my dress was chosen to impress, but inside, I was unraveling. What Tom didn't know, or so I thought, was the truth. Jacob, our son, wasn't Tom's child. He was Jake's. I had buried this truth so deep that even I sometimes forgot it, but it was always there, like a shadow over every moment. I had spent so many years with my family, and Tom loved Jacob as his own, dedicating himself to being a present and caring father. When work left him drained, watching him, I felt guilty for keeping my secret from him. I had convinced myself that the truth could remain hidden forever, that we could continue living the life we had built together without facing any consequences. But tonight, something felt different. Tom's calm demeanor in his messages, along with his insistence on surprising me, seemed a bit off. The restaurant he chose was one of our favorites, an intimate spot with soft lighting and quiet corners, a place that had once set the stage for laughter and whispered conversations. As I stepped inside, I hoped to rekindle some semblance of that. I wanted to pretend, for just one evening, that everything was fine. But as Tom greeted me, I noticed something in his eyes, something cold, a quiet rage that he was holding tightly under control. He didn't speak much, and as the evening unfolded, my anxiety only grew. Then, when the time was right, he presented the evidence, photos, messages. Tom knew everything. He knew about my betrayal, the affair, and even the truth about Jacob. My carefully crafted world came crashing down. Tom didn't yell or make a scene. He simply laid the evidence before me. His silence spoke volumes. In that moment, I realized the gravity of the situation. The damage I had caused was no longer just about me, Tom, or even Jake. It was about the years of deception, the lives I had entangled in my lies, and the irreparable fractures I had created in the process. This night, which should have been a celebration of love, had become a reckoning, a moment of accountability. The truth was that I couldn't ignore the consequences of my choices any longer. The worst part was Tom's silence. As he looked at me, it wasn't anger or disappointment. It was resignation, a finality that left no room for forgiveness. What happens when the facade crumbles and the truth is laid bare? When the man you've been deceiving for years decides to confront the lies, what do? I didn't have an answer. All I knew was that this night, which was meant to celebrate our love, had become the beginning of my undoing. The restaurant was dimly lit and familiar, a place that once felt like a haven for shared intimacy. As we sat there, I stepped inside and the air felt thicker, charged with an unspoken tension. Tom was already seated at a table that had borne witness to countless evenings of affection. But tonight, his calmness sent a chill down my spine. There was a quiet menace lurking beneath his composed exterior. His eyes were locked on me the moment I walked in. As I approached, I felt his intensity with every step. Each move towards him felt deliberate. I had the feeling that something was wrong, but I couldn't put my finger on it. We began dinner with a facade of normalcy, exchanging pleasantries about trivial topics. Our words danced on the surface of the moment, but they didn't really matter. There was a deep undercurrent of truth that both of us could feel, but neither of us was willing to address it. As the evening went on, the tension thickened, and an unspoken storm gathered beneath our polite exchanges. Tom's gaze lingered on me with an unsettling persistence, as if he were stripping away every pretense and exposing all the lies I had carefully woven into the fabric of our lives. I tried to convince myself that we could get through the evening without incident, but the atmosphere betrayed that hope. Suddenly, the tone of the night shifted. Tom's posture straightened, his movements slow and deliberate. There was a calm about him that was far more chilling than any anger could have been. Instead of raising his voice, he reached into his bag and placed a folder on the table between us. My chest tightened. I didn't need to open it to know what it was. The air around me seemed to thicken as he pushed it toward me, and the silence was broken by words that hit like a hammer. "I know everything, Justine." His voice was calm and controlled, without any warmth. Time seemed to slow as I stared at the folder. My pulse quickened and my breath caught. Finally, Tom opened it, revealing the first piece of damning evidence, a DNA test. It confirmed my deepest fear: Jacob wasn't his son. The stark truth lay in black and white, undeniable. The ground beneath me seemed to vanish as my carefully constructed life came crashing down around me. And that was only the beginning, Tom went on, methodically revealing the depth of his knowledge. He showed me photos, reports from a private investigator, and text messages, each piece of evidence of my betrayal laid bare before me. With each revelation, he exposed the double life I had thought I could keep hidden forever. I could no longer hide. The world around us blurred into insignificance. The hum of the restaurant faded into nothingness. All that remained was the weight of Tom's gaze. His eyes were unrelenting, bearing into me with an intensity that left me paralyzed. I've known for months. His tone was disturbingly calm. He wanted to see how far I would take this, how long I could pretend. His words cut through me, sharper than any shout could have. I tried to speak, to offer some kind of explanation, but he silenced me with a venomous snap. "Don't try to talk your way out of this." Each word was like a knife, driving deeper with his calmness and control, making me feel utterly powerless. This wasn't a misunderstanding or a mistake. It was the unraveling of everything we had built together, the destruction of the life I had taken for granted, and it was deliberate, precise. Tom slid another envelope across the table. "Divorce due to adultery," he said softly, leaving no room for argument. My hands trembled as I picked up the envelope. It felt heavier than the paper itself. Inside were the documents that would sever our marriage, reducing years of memories and shared moments to cold legalities, formalities. "I thought you should know," he added, his voice flat and unfeeling. "I've already frozen our accounts. Your things have been sent to your mother's house. There's nothing left for you here." The enormity of his words hit me like a tidal wave. He had dismantled my life with meticulous efficiency, leaving no part untouched. I was left reeling, overwhelmed by the sheer scale of his plan. I hadn't just lost him, I had lost our home, our stability, everything we had built together. And there was more. Tom delivered the final blow with chilling precision, his voice still calm. "As for Jake," he said, "he'll pay for this too. The firm knows everything about your affair. His career is over." I was gasping, struggling to process the sheer impact of his words. He hadn't just sought to end our marriage. He was ensuring the complete destruction of everything I had touched. Jake's once thriving career would be in ruins, collateral damage in the wreckage of my lies. I looked at Tom, and I could see that he was pleased with himself. This wasn't an impulsive decision. It was a carefully planned act of revenge. He didn't say anything else. He simply got up from the table and walked away. I was left sitting alone amidst the wreckage of my life. The restaurant continued on around me, seemingly oblivious to the devastation at our table. I sat frozen, clutching the divorce papers. The tears I had been holding back finally spilled over. I had convinced myself I could control everything, but it had all fallen apart. The life I had taken for granted was gone, replaced by a cold, unrelenting void. Tom had torn down the walls I had built, brick by brick, until there was nothing left but ruin. I had lost him. I had lost Jake. And now I was left to imagine a future as empty and unforgiving as the man who had once promised to love me forever.